Okay, well, I hope that you guys are sitting and doing these together, the last video and this video. I think I'm going to do a small warm-up. And one of the main skills that we're going to be learning in this practice session is this. We've been doing this thing where you take a dot and you go to a dot and you create a curve. So you take a dot and you go to a dot and you create a curve. And you take a dot and you go to a dot and you create a curve, and a dot to a dot, and it makes a curve. And when I first started doing this, I really started doing this as a way of helping you guys cultivate curves, but it became immediately apparent that that this has structural form qualities that were really powerful, and we're gonna flex that muscle that we've been practicing for a while. I'll show you how we can use this one basic skill to really generate some interesting forms. So that should be plenty of a warm-up. The minor axis splits these things in two. Here are the two sides of it. Okay, so back to the torso. And because the hip to shoulder ratio in this torso is what it is, this will be a woman. And I want to decide on my center line. That'll be where the neck attaches. I'm going to make this my center line here. Okay, so in a lot of your drawing, this might be perfectly adequate for what we need from a torso. You know, you could just shade something like this if you just say I'm making a drawing of a woman. She's walking down the street and she's holding an umbrella. And it's perfectly nice, and we just don't have to take it any further than that, unless we want to. Okay, but this skill, there's the diamond for the hands. But this skill opens up new possibilities, okay? So let's say, for instance, the pelvic bone, the pelvis has this bony structure, and it comes to about here. It lives in there, and we could take, and you could, having these dots, you could stretch a curve across this that ends there, like that. And right here, what's called the pubic synthesis. Okay, so you could go from down in here, and from there, there's two possibilities. One of them is this. One of them is that if you think about this as having a front and a back, and you would want to relate it to this. So if we had that, this would have to be bigger. So say this has a front and a back like that. So if we think of the front side and the back side, okay, and you put a dot, 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 and now there's a curve shape that will go like this, like that, and like that, okay? And so you end up with this. And that provides the exact attachment for the legs. So the legs live in here, like this. So that might seem overly complicated, but let's just do it again from a different angle. And now this time, to get the shape along the bottom of the pelvis, I'm going to put in one more ellipse. And I decide on a center line. Say my center line comes to there, and I go like this. And now I've got, and then I go like that. And now the leg goes here and here. So that provides us with a really useful framework for seeing the attachment of the legs. And then this, you see this, which comes forward like that. This becomes a really important muscular attachment piece, attachment point, and it's called the anterior superior iliac crest, and it lives up in here, and it's further into anatomy than we'll want to go. But this segment right in here has a tendency to, it's called the inguinal ligament. There's a ligament that lives inside of there. And there's muscles that attach here and work their way down like this. The sartorius attaches here. And goes down and around and separates off this set of muscles in here called the adductor muscles. So you have this here, and that's where the sartorius starts to attach, and it goes this way, and it separates off these adductor muscles. Like I said, this while being cool and opening up a lot, like you'll notice, you see how the top of the leg has a place that it's fully inserting into right here, you know? And so that's nice to have that. If you're really like, trying to draw anatomically sophisticated figures. On the other hand, you may not want to draw figures that are that anatomically sophisticated, in which case still having the hip go like this, understanding that in the front and in the back is a point of attachment where the leg emerges from. So if nothing else, this helps you draw like a pair of it helps you draw kind of like a pair of underwear briefs. Like that's one way of thinking about this part of the pelvis, is as a pair of underwear briefs, and it helps you see where you have side planes and where you have insertions. It just takes it one level further. And we've been dealing with that primarily from the front side, and in a male, there's the sex organs are just shaped externally as opposed to internally, and okay, so if we are going to talk about taking this shape and looking at it from the back, so starting there again, and I'm just going to show the bottom ellipse. So this point would really be living in the dead center of this ellipse, okay? And so to stretch it from side to side, one of the things that we want to do is on the floor of the pelvic girdle, we need to give it some space. A lot of times, like one of the problems with our star figures is it goes like this, okay? It goes right like that. And if you want for the star figures to start to look a little more realistic, you can do that. And that's what this does for us. It gives us a little bit of a formula to get to there. And so if that's my center line, I'm just going to look for side contacts and go like that and go like that. And now you can see how I've generated a set of briefs, right? And the person's legs attach here. And across this line, again, we have to go up a little bit higher to reach the top, to reach this. So this is called the posterior superior iliac crest, and it has, what happens is the pelvis wraps around this way and it cuts down like that, and the sacrum attaches inside right here. There's this this kind of triangle shape of the sacrum as it works its way down to the top of the cleavage of the gluteus maximus, and that's right here. And then these go outward, they go outward and connect down like that. And then one way that a lot of people characterize the shape of a butt is they characterize it as kind of a butterfly. So it's kind of like this. Funny how these shapes repeat and continue to repeat. Okay, so if you take this butterfly shape right here and you draw our star figure, here's our star figure from the back, and if we apply the butterfly shape, and that really takes it a long ways. So we're working inside of, we have like this, and you could start out for the pelvis, if you don't want to do to the single point in here, you could just start out like that. Marking the front and back, giving yourself the floor of the pelvis, the points where those curves will hit, 2, 1, 2. That's where the legs emerge from. And I want to clean this all out. And here's where your butterfly shape goes. Here's your connections through the butterfly shape. And very frequently the sacrum is not seen, it's not that articulated. Okay. And the side plane, kind of what you want to think, so today is turning into pretty much just navigating the pelvis. So if you're constructing a pelvis in side plane, and so let's do a full torso. So here's something nice where you have the legs coming from there and coming from there and there. And so you can really see, you really are given a kind of nice perspective by this kind of method. And as we go further into the musculature of the legs, it'll help. Again, don't be hesitant to use this in deep simplification. I think in the next video, I'll talk a bit about the rib cage. Okay, so what I want for you to realize is that in practicing these shapes, it's really helpful to be able to find a center. So here's a center. And throw a line, a curve that connects. And in the case of the pelvis, we can end up with a very simplified construction of the pelvic region. So, one more time. And you can see the connection point is here. So say we started out with a sketch like this, but we wanted to go back and try to make sure that we had it all constructed nicely. We could go over the top of it with an ellipse, and then this would represent the placement of another ellipse. These we'd need to be able to get rid of. Sorry, I put it in the wrong place. So you can see that the top of the leg will insert inside of this, right? Where this guy curves around, the top will go in there. And a lot of times the wrinkles that will be resulting from will follow these curls too. Okay, I think that's it.